Hi, Tim.
Hi, Lexi. What's up?
Chilling. Thank you so much for joining me on my podcast. This is
My
super
pleasure.
special.
Oh my God, it's my pleasure. Oh.
You know what's really special about this? Well, one of the things that's really special about this, you're the first male to be as a guest on my podcast. I've only had women on so far. So,
Excuse me, are you assuming my gender right now? Huh?
oh my God, no, don't start with
Excuse
me like
me.
that. Don't get me,
No.
Tim, don't get me canceled. Don't get me canceled now. All right, but no, but in all seriousness, you are the first male voice on my podcast, and I'm really excited about that because you know the idea is to talk about like parenthood and like childbirth and all that kind of stuff, and
Mhm.
the assumption is always like, oh, this is like all women's world and only women think about this, and the reality is like men are half involved in things related to like childbirth and
Right,
parenting and stuff like that. Um,
right.
and I thought it was really cool that the way that you and I connected was that you reached out to me after I posted the episode about the doula.
Mhm.
Um, and so, I had never thought, well, I guess it never came to my mind before that like somebody in your position as a paramedic, like that is one of the things that you guys do. You guys have to deliver kids.
Right.
I guess that's just not where your mind goes, right away when you think of child delivery. So I guess let's just start off. If you could just introduce yourself, your full name, and tell me a little bit about, your work and how you got into it. Yeah, just a little background.
Hi. My name is Tim or Timur, and my last name is it's horrible. It's Chernichkin.
I think it's
Um,
great. It's
oh,
great.
I know. Listen, but most people are gonna be like, church chicken? What? Huh? Um, so how did I get into this? I got into this because I'm gonna go with the little violin here. I got into it, I guess, because of 9/11, and I
Okay.
wanted to help out when I was a kid, and my parents obviously didn't want to let me go to ground zero because, I'm in ninth grade or eighth grade or whatever it is.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I think that's what really started the whole like process of me wanting to help. Uh,
Okay. So
and
tell us exactly what you do.
so I'm a paramedic with New York City. I'm not going to say the certain department because, they don't like to be mentioned most of the time. Uh,
Sure.
I've been doing this as a career for a little over 11 years now. I started as an EMT for the city in 2012. I started as an EMT overall in, I believe, 2010. Um, and then I became a paramedic in 2019 before the pandemic. Actually, like January of 2019, so way before the pandemic. Uh, and yeah, I've been doing it ever since. Um, nothing
And there
really.
and
What's up?
there's different levels, right? So that's something I learned from you is that
Right.
there's EMTs, there's paramedics. Can you
Mhm.
talk to me about that?
So EMTs are what's called BLS or basic life support. They're also trained in, receiving births, but what they're training mostly is rapid response stuff. So traumas, quick acting, things like, let's say, if the person has, a bleed, how to stop the bleeding, great. If the person they think is having a heart attack or they're showing signs of ACS or acute coronary syndrome,
Hmm.
they'll give them aspirin and then, maybe and probably call us if we're anywhere nearby, or take them to a hospital as fast as they can. So they're really, I'm not gonna, shit on what they do, but
Hmm.
they have uh, a big skill set, a large, big. They have a large skill set, especially dealing with, I mean, especially in New York City, you deal with jobs every day and it's all kinds of things. Sometimes you'll go to something that they tell you is, stomach ache, and you get there and it's a gunshot. So, it's a great job. And then when you start moving on, different states, different regions have different certification levels. So they might have from EMT to EMTP, which is like, or I don't really remember what it's called, but they're like EMT, but with a little bit of the stuff that paramedics can do, but not everything.
Okay.
But New York City only has EMT and paramedic. So once you move up to paramedic, that you're more trained in anatomy and physiology, a lot more medication bases. We can start IVs, we can intubate a patient, so put a tube down their throat, basically, into their lungs. Um, yeah, so there's, I mean, it's a lot more of an education process for the paramedic.
Okay.
Um, it
So
takes,
how long does someone like an EMT before they graduate to a
so an
paramedic?
EMT, usually the schools, I mean, there's different schools, different versions. Usually an EMT is 3 to 6 months, depending where they go. And
Okay.
for paramedic, it's 2 years on the outside, let's say in a college or at like a paramedic school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with us, it was basically 10 months, and it's accelerated. You're just in there every day trying to pull your hair out, which obviously I did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You must be a
completely.
really good paramedic then.
Oh, pulled out
The
so much
best.
hair.
When you started, you had long, luscious
I
hair.
have listen. Have you listen? Okay, so my real name, all right? Don't tell anyone. It's Fabio. Okay, it's actually
Okay.
Fabio, and
Yeah.
I had to take this whole fake persona because I pulled out my hair. I'm still
Yeah.
still so sexy and gorgeous, but whatever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The hair, no hair, it doesn't matter. Yeah, you got the skills now, so I
Uh,
hear you. Okay, let me ask you this. Is if you're an EMT, does that mean you like everybody becomes a paramedic, or you have
no,
the choice to just like stay an EMT? You don't
no,
have
there,
to move
there's
on.
there's no one's forcing you like
Okay.
it's not
Okay.
Nazi Germany.
Okay, that's
Uh,
good. Yeah. All right, so
yeah,
you
no,
could stay. You could
you
stay in
can
whatever
you can
role.
become yeah you can stay in EMT. You can become a paramedic. It's tough to become a paramedic through the through certain agencies. But then if you're doing it on the outside, it's slightly expensive. I think currently it's like $14,000 for I
Okay.
think, or somewhere in that region. Honestly, I don't know because I never went through the outside. So obviously, it's really up to the person if they're into it or not. But it does move you up in your career, makes you a little more money, and
Yeah.
who
I guess
doesn't
it's
like money?
everybody. I guess so. That makes sense. It's the next logical step.
Right.
Um,
There's
oh,
other steps further, at least from the city perspective. You can become a rescue paramedic, which is basically a hashtag paramedic or a rescue paramedic. It's basically the same thing, but hashtag you are specifically assigned to hazmat incidents. So, I don't know, chemical spill or whatever. They're gonna be looking for you to send you out. And then rescue uh, is the same thing as hashtag with a little more formulation, again, more medications and whatnot. They'll deal with building collapses. So, like, they'll go in if there's a patient under the rubble and nobody can get him out. They'll get in there and try to basically equalize the patient for the time being, have them, stable, hopefully. They do diving training, they do rappelling. So,
like if a building collapsed and a person is trapped under stuff,
correct.
they'll try to help them while they're still like in
Correct.
there. Oh
While
wow. Okay.
firefighters and NYPD are trying to get them out, they'll be the ones that actually go in and try to stabilize the patient or keep them stable or her until the patient can actually be out, get out,
Wow.
taken out,
Okay.
whatever.
Have you
Yeah.
ever done anything like that? Or I guess that's not with the
That's not my
designation that you
specialty.
did. Okay.
You have to apply for it and then go through more training. I haven't done it just because I have my own gripes with the fact that I can't just be anywhere that I want to. There's specific places that I have to work at,
Mm-hmm.
and all those places are far from home, and really don't want
Yeah,
to. I want to travel that far.
understandable.
Yeah. So,
Understandable. Okay.
but it's cool
Uh,
training. I would love to have the training. But
I could only imagine. When did you know you had the stomach for all this stuff? I mean, I can only imagine, working in this role, you deal with some gruesome situations, like mentally, physically crazy
right.
things. Like, how did you
Oh,
know that
so
that's
much fun.
something? Yeah.
Well, I think honestly, you don't know until you kind of experience it.
Okay.
Uh, because there's really nothing that get you completely ready to see the things that you do see. Um, I think that was more of like a trial and error type of situation.
Hmm.
You, I think I saw my first dead body when I was uh brand new EMT with a private company just doing transports, which is basically you're a taxi service, from nursing home to hospital, from hospital to nursing home or whatever it is. Um, and I don't know, maybe it's because it was on the overnight and I was kind of still out of it, tired in a sense. I don't know. I didn't really react to it in any certain way where I got, nervous or scared or anything. Um, the same thing with my first like bloody, messy job. There was brain matter and whatever. Also, when I worked at a private company, I don't know why they didn't call 911, but they decided to call this private company and we responded. And I was like, oh my God, this is like a 911 job. It's more like it gets more exciting because you're like, oh my God, this is cool. Now I'm working 911. I'm like, oh my God, stop calling people.
Yeah. Once it starts, it doesn't stop, huh?
No, 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 not at all. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, stomach wise, you just kind of, if it's for you, it's for you. If it's not for you, then there are people that don't come back, meaning there's people that come in, they do their rotations or whatever, and they say that, you know what, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not for
Have
everyone.
you have you ever had an instance where you were called to a scene, you showed up and you're like, I can't do it? Has that ever happened? I mean, I know you're probably you probably can't like just walk away. You obviously have to help, but has there been where you're like, oh, I don't know if
Oh,
I can.
there's plenty of times where you come in, you're like, oh my God, please, no, stop it. Most of the time, that's whenever you open the door and all you see is like roaches flying around and just all over the place on the walls, and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this.
Wait, so it's almost like less even the thing that you're showing up for and more just the environment that it's in
A
that
hundred
makes it
percent.
worse?
Uh,
Wow, okay.
can you? So some of the hoarding houses that we go into that have like roaches and rats just and everything just around you, everywhere you step is slimy and sticky. You don't know what it is. You don't. Oh, you're like, oh my God, please don't get on my uniform. Don't touch my skin. Just. Ugh. But like those are probably the worst situations. Otherwise, you get to places and you're like, all right, I mean, to me, I deal with things easily. I know everyone has their own like little gimmick in their head of what they're really disgusted by. For me, I can deal with vomit, I can deal with bodily excrements, I can deal with everything possible, blood, brain matter, eyes popping out. Um, for me, it's a certain smell, and that's the smell of ammonia. And
Mm-hmm.
that usually happens if someone, I'm sorry, but urinates all over on the floor or on the carpet and it stays there for a long time. And that hits, that's the one thing that gets me because it just hits me like in my brain, mid-brain. It's just like, oh my God, I can't think. Let's just get out of this premises.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I could imagine. Is it true? Maybe this is like a sidebar slash not a sidebar question. Is it true that when people pass away, they like poop themselves?
yeah, usually, I mean, so they'll usually, depending. All right. If usually urine is first, so they'll
Uh-huh.
urinate themselves first. They will most of the time also defecate,
Okay.
but that's usually after a little bit of time buildup.
Okay.
Plus, that also goes into when we're trying to work on a person and doing CPR, you know, whatever. Sometimes, mistakes happen. You'll push down on the stomach or something, and something might come
Hmm.
out. Because again, the body's completely shut down. You're creating blood flow, and all the
Hmm.
muscles of the digestive system and everything's relaxed, right?
Okay.
So nothing's really holding anything in per
Right.
se.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, most of the time, you will see excrement. The other reasoning for that is after some time, the body, because it has so much warmth and whatever, uh, it starts expanding because gases start expanding inside the body. So
Mm-hmm.
usually, a body that you find that's been there for a while is usually bloated, and the gases obviously release at some point. But yeah, sorry.
That
Just
sounds.
getting-
No, don't apologize. I asked you to be on this podcast.
Yeah,
It's on me.
yeah, I mean,
No.
yeah, I'm kind of, like I feel weird whenever I do talk about it, and it's like, oh, I talk about it with such like, with such grace. It's like, oh yeah, dead bodies, ha ha ha, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then
I
when
mean,
people react to it, they're like, oh my God, ew.
it makes sense. This is your job, so this
It's
is
part
what
of
you
life.
do.
It's part
And
of life.
exactly, it's part of life, and naturally, when you're around it so much more, you obviously are desensitized to it to an
Oh yeah.
extent. But I mean, you know me, like in the past, even when we've gotten together, like hung out for Katie's birthday or something, I'm always asking you questions about your job because I find
Yeah,
it.
that's true.
I'm the type that like I find it really fascinating when people do things that I could not imagine myself doing whatsoever in any shape or form. And like this is the kind of job that is obviously incredibly necessary in our society. And I'm just thankful that people like you exist who can do it and are like, yay, poop and blood, brain, whatever. Like what? How about like I mean I guess maybe
I'm
not so
sorry.
much now, but
That
go ahead.
sounded like a Disney song, like some poop, some brain, some blood.
I think you need to write a musical. Like an EMT, like a paramedic Disney kind of
EMT, yeah,
musical.
EMT paramedic musical with a little bit of
Yeah,
darkness in it.
yeah.
I think
I
it's
got
more going to be like on a South Park episode than anything else because it's going to get a
yeah,
little.
yeah. All right, we'll work on that afterwards.
Yeah,
We can talk
yeah,
about that.
gotcha.
No, that's crazy. How about like, and I imagine now it's probably not so bad. But when you first started this work, did it affect like your sleep at all, or like when you weren't at work? Like, did you find yourself thinking about this stuff a lot, or are you able to just like do it, walk away, and then just like live your life?
When you first start, I mean, it depends for some people. I've known people that, actually when they see like a baby die, they'll
Mm-hmm.
come into work and they'll say, "Oh, I see the baby everywhere," but then, you have to send them into counseling to talk to people and whatever. Um, for me, it's never happened. Thank God.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, for me, I think it was more with the crazy, exciting jobs. You come back and you're like, "Oh my God, this happened, this happened." You kind of just want to talk about it to people.
Mm-hmm.
But then after a while, you realize most people don't want to hear about it,
Okay, I can see that.
especially, yeah, especially like loved ones or, like significant others. Sometimes you try to tell them, yeah, yeah, this happened, and they're like, ew, shut the fuck up. I don't want to
Yeah.
hear about it.
Yeah. Like
So it's
I'm eating, Tim, not
right,
right now.
right. So that's I guess nothing like that has ever happened to me where I kind of can't sleep because of a job.
Mm-hmm.
Have I felt bad afterwards with some jobs? Yeah, there have been moments here and there, far and few in between. My usual thing is at the moment on scene, if I see a family member start grieving in
Mm-hmm.
front of me, like hardcore, and I like hyper focus in on it a little bit, that's when I'm like, oh no, 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 I need to walk out real quick because I'm about to fucking tear up. There's a no, 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 no. So that's really the only time that I actually get the feels for it. But
Yeah.
besides that, not really.
Okay, that's good. You're very strong minded, and I guess like good at keeping your emotions together and very professional. So that's great. Can you tell me a little bit about your training when it came to like childbirth, child delivery, like those kind of
Mhm.
situations? How was that introduced to you guys in the beginning? And also, I'm curious to know, like, I imagine that there's probably the beginning type of training for EMT, and then maybe like an upgraded type of training for a paramedic. So if you could talk to me about how all of that works.
So with childbirth, the initial training, I'm going to be honest, it's mostly the same for EMTs and paramedics.
Okay.
We for paramedics there's a couple of other things, but I'll get to that. So the training, it's obviously upgraded since I started. When I first started, it was mostly, by the book. You read through it, you look at some pictures of babies coming out of vaginas, and you're like, oh, okay, all right. And you're usually younger, so you're like, vagina,
Yeah.
vagina.
Naturally.
Um, right, of course. Uh, and mostly it was nothing really hands-on, I'll be honest. And that was like the beginning when I first started and that first went to EMT school.
So
Uh,
not even wait, so not even like a like a doll, like a dummy to practice on, just
so
straight video?
So in EMT school, nothing. But
Wow,
this is
okay.
this is EMT school on the outside,
Okay.
not for the current department I'm with.
Okay.
So there was really nothing. It just tells you what to do. They're like, oh, you baby's delivered, great. Oh, if the baby's this, great. There's excessive bleeding, massage the fundus. It's like, okay. What's the fundus? Oh, the fundus is in that area. So it's kind of like, basic,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then later on, obviously, when I went into a certain department, agency, um, they're more hands-on. They definitely provide a lot more training with, you know, mannequins and whatnot. They've definitely upgraded since again, because we move on in time, we move on with, the things we have, right? So when I went through the actual training for the specific role, um, we did have mannequins for delivery. We could kind of like assess of how you like protocols always change. At some point, we had to, if the birth wasn't imminent or the baby wasn't coming out, we would have to guide the head and the shoulders so the shoulders would deliver normally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe turn and then guide the shoulders down and up so the baby would deliver. So we would go through training like that. Also, kind of more, I'm going to say, uh, caveman-like in a sense with the equipment that we had, where we would have to imitate things, or we would have like one fake vagina and then like we pull the baby out, right? Recently, when I went back in for something that we have to do, we have to constantly recertify. They actually have gone far and beyond. They have a full life-size female mannequin that actually gives birth, talks to you, everything comes out. There's placenta that comes out. There is fluids, uh, different types of emergencies where maybe it's going to be a prolapsed cord that comes out first, and you're like, oh, okay, I have to do what's my training? Okay, moisten, sterile dressing, put it around the cord. Don't stuff back in, or they'll do a limb presentation, which really we can't really do anything about it. That's a quick transport, or they'll do something like a cord wrapped around the neck, which is something that unfortunately happens a lot. And then in that sense, we can do something. We have to push the head back a little bit and try to get the cord from around the neck. If that doesn't work, then we have to clamp and cut the cord right there as we speak. If we can't get to it, we actually have to place our fingers in the vagina and put like a V style so that the baby can have some type of air pass through. Because most likely the placenta is disattached because birth was imminent, but the baby's stuck because of the cord. So yeah, so like nowadays the training is a lot, well, I would say cooler because to me it's like, oh wow, they have all this fun stuff to work
It's more
with.
realistic.
Much
It's
more realistic animatronics. Like I feel like I'm in, Universal Studios. Like, whoa, where's Godzilla?
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's really cool, and it does give you a bit of hands-on experience to expect something. I mean, in your mind, it's still like, oh yeah, these are dummies and dolls, but it
Hmm.
still gives you some type of hands-on experience with it.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. I am quite surprised to hear that like early on it was so basic sounding. I mean, even like not even like mannequins from the very very beginning. That's a little bit surprising. I'm
Well,
glad to hear that it's a lot more like
yeah.
developed now. But I'm wondering, like, I guess I'd be curious to know, out of all the calls that 911 gets, like, what do you think like the ratio is of it being childbirth versus everything else? Like because
Oh,
it almost sounds like the childbirth is like the least of their
it's
concerns,
so
or at
it's
least
not
was.
it's not even it's the least of their concerns. It's just that you'll talk to people that go through as much time as I did, like maybe 10 to 15 years, maybe even 20 years, and you'll ask them, "Oh, how many kids have you delivered?" And some people will tell you zero.
Hmm.
It's just sheer luck of the draw in a sense,
Wow.
right? It happens. A lot of the times we catch it before it has to happen, right? If someone goes into labor, we just rush their ass as fast as we can to the
Mm-hmm.
hospital. Um, and a lot of people haven't had that opportunity. Luckily or unluckily, I don't know what I would say, but for me, it's happened multiple times. With paramedics, we get a little more training on what to do in certain situations, right? So childbirth, mostly, it's natural, right? Um, it's really us not doing anything. We're just kind of
Receiving.
assisting and
Mm-hmm.
receiving, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
making the person comfortable. We're making sure that things are sterile around us. And really, I give it to you guys, women. It's really you guys doing the full job, right?
Yeah.
For paramedics, we are trained more in, identifying things like eclampsia,
Mm-hmm.
right? Preeclampsia, if the patient starts seizing, what to give them after childbirth or during childbirth.
Mm-hmm.
We can formulate our own medications and start an IV and push medications that we have protocol under to stop that seizure of magnesium. Um, and other views, we can also give fluids to much alleviate, let's say, excessive blood loss. So we can give a bolus of fluids or a liter bag, just run it through so you have some type of volume inside you. It's not blood. We don't have blood bags. Some municipalities do, which are usually like the ones where it takes you an hour to get to the hospital or something. But for New York City, obviously, hospitals are all over the place. It's not really needed. Um, so, like in that case, we do get trained a little more with what to do and when to do it with childbirth, and yeah, uh, yeah, I guess that's
How many kids have you
my
delivered so far in your career?
it's about like five, but
5. Wow.
correct.
Is there like a person in your like office in your work environment who's like, I don't know, like has like a champion of childbirths and is like, I've delivered like 50 and like everybody
So
knows this about them? Is that a thing?
uh, I don't know anyone who's delivered 50. That's
Yeah.
a
I just
oof.
threw a number.
But we did have this girl who she wasn't even a paramedic. She was an EMT, and she just had I don't know why. She was on the job for maybe I think 5 years. She's now with Suffolk County Police Department,
Hmm.
Suffolk or Nassau, whatever, one of those Long Island places.
Okay.
Long Island, Long Island.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she just I don't know, luck of the draw. She had like 8 births within 5 years. She was just always magically in that area, and she got assigned to those jobs.
That's so interesting.
Yeah,
Okay. So it really is the luck of the draw, huh?
it really is
Okay.
luck of the draw. Like I said, I know people that haven't had not one, or they were, almost there, and whatever, somebody else took the job from them.
Hmm. Okay. Give me just 1 second. I just want to
Sure,
turn
sure.
the AC off. Hold
You
on.
do your thing. No, no, puppy. Is he still there? It
Come here,
is hot,
Basil.
right? I'm not
Well,
bugging, right?
no, well, my AC, it's like a heating unit too. So
Okay.
in my case, it was actually heating.
Yeah, like
Basil is going back to her place.
right now, I think I'm showing. Look at this. Like, it is fucking hot in here. I don't know why.
Oh, really? Do you want to open a window or something?
I might actually turn. No, no, fuck it. Whatever. It is what it
Sure.
is.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
I'll
right.
sweat it out. It's nice. It's like banya.
I love it. I mean, listen, we're talking about natural like body functions, so you're
Yeah.
like peak doing that right now.
Oh,
So
oh yeah. Oh, lovely. So hot. Oh, fuck yeah.
I'm not cutting any of this out.
So hot.
No,
No,
no.
don't even.
I
Don't even. I have no shame. You should know that by now.
I love it. I love it.
Mm.
Those are my favorite kinds of people. The people that have no shame because they're the most fun to be around. They're like, who
Yeah.
wants to be around someone who's like always worried about what everybody thinks?
Normies
Wow.
are so boring.
Normies are the worst. No normies here.
None.
Hashtag no normies.
Hashtag unnoticed.
So okay, so tell me about your first experience delivering a child.
Well, I was 15 and she took me to the woods. No. Uh, so
Oh,
my
Tim.
my first my first experience was actually a gruesome one. And it was more of the delivery already happened.
Okay.
Uh, so my first experience, I think I had maybe let's say I'm not sure, maybe 2 to 3 years on the job. Uh, and
And that was pre high tech birth things. That was when
right.
you were still in like video
Well,
training.
this no. So my first year as an EMT, that was full book.
Okay.
After my first year, I switched to a certain department, and they had
Mhm.
more training stuff. But again,
Okay.
it wasn't anything like fancy like right now. They'll
Mhm.
have
Okay.
a random, block where it's a vagina, and you'll deliver a
Okay.
baby out of a false vagina.
Yeah.
But that was
Okay.
really the max of it, right? Um, so it was, I believe we got a job. I'm not gonna obviously say addresses because that's HIPAA.
Mhm. No, no, no.
Um, like we thought it was bullshit because usually when jobs come in and we get to the place and no one's answering or no one's around or anything, it just sounded like something's off because I think it came over as unknown. That's how when if someone calls 911 doesn't say anything, it just comes over as an unknown. So you don't
Like
know what you're coming into.
like silence?
No, like if someone calls and you might hear, I don't know, of someone screaming a little bit, or not even.
Okay.
So if someone, whatever, calls and hangs up, let's say, right?
Okay.
Uh, or calls and says the address and says, "Oh, I need an ambulance now," and then hangs up, right?
Okay. Okay.
There's no specifics, so the job comes over as an unknown.
Okay.
Uh, I was working a certain specialty unit that patrols the beach, and we used to just pick up jobs randomly that were close to the beach, and a different unit got that assigned, so we went to help out to see what's up. Initially, nothing, nothing, nothing. Then out of nowhere, we see a guy running down the street. He's like, "Hey, what's going on?" We're like, "Oh, do you know anyone around here that's like pregnant or pregnant female?" He's like, my wife is pregnant." We're like, "Oh shit. Okay, this might be something." Uh, he runs up, opens his door. We come in. We basically rush into the house, and all we see is I guess his wife, standing in the hallway next to the bathroom with her hands between her legs, holding a fetus, with the cord still attached to her inside, no placenta yet. And we're all like, "Oh shit, 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 shit." Baby's 100, like I think it was 6 months or 7 months, 7 months, I think maybe. I think it was 7 months. I don't remember. I do remember that the baby was like maybe this big, I would say. So my arm looks really long here. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm like, I have no context of your arm. Can we get a
So,
banana for scale? Like, I don't.
sir, you want a banana?
Let me take that back. All right, but you're saying like it was a preemie, so like six,
So
seven months.
yeah, it was a preemie. It almost looked
Okay.
clear, like
Wow.
its color was you could almost see through it. So here's a here's
Yeah.
iPad, right? So I
Uh-huh.
think it was just basically as a little smaller than the iPad, maybe.
Okay. I
Yeah.
got you.
So like maybe like up to here to the iPad.
Okay. Okay.
Whatever that is. It's
Yeah.
definitely more than 6 inches.
I'll take
So
your word for it.
I'm so stupid. Anyways, yeah, so it was kind of like a oh shit moment. Um, Luckily, I was with well, the crew that responded initially. It was basically one brand new guy who's African American. You saw if you looked at him, he just turned completely white. His
Okay.
partner had, I think at the time, maybe like 7 years on. So his partner didn't take it like not I don't want to say seriously, but his partner didn't take it like, oh my God, panic, panic. And the person I was working with, he was actually my original mentor at the time when I started working with him. He had like 11 years on the job. So he was also very like, oh, okay, straight to work. He took out a bag valve mask to do breathing for the kid because when he came up and he looked, he's like, the baby's not breathing. All right, so he started breathing for it, doing like miniature compressions on the chest, basically miniature CPR. Um, and the baby would start breathing on its own here and there. Uh, so that was like my first experience. My first experience was trial by fire. Um,
So did the baby survive?
that I don't know because I never
Okay.
checked back at the hospital. The baby
Okay.
was taken to the hospital, but I don't know you know,
Okay. But he was
what happened after
alive
that.
from the between like picking them up and driving them to the house. It sounds like he
So
was breathing.
he was alive and going back and forth. So he was kind of on the cusp because he would stop breathing again and then restart, stop breathing, restart. So that I mean usually that's not a great sign, right? But hopefully the baby made it. The story was she thought that she needed to have a bowel movement, went to the bathroom and delivered into the toilet.
Whoa.
Yeah,
That's wild.
yeah.
And she didn't provide any other like because some women are more susceptible to like premature births. She wasn't aware, like it wasn't like, oh, I had a feeling this was gonna happen. It was literally purely like she was fine, and then she went to the bathroom,
The
and it just
there
wow.
was I believe this was her first birth, so it was what was it, Previa one, Previa
Mhm.
Guardia Zero, Previa one. Um, and I think that's what it is, or Previa one, whatever.
What does that
Um,
mean? What are you saying?
oh,
I'm like, you're not speaking English. I don't know what that means.
uh, it's actually in the medical field. Every pregnancy that you have is Previa. A Guardia is a successful birth. So in the medical field, if you go into the hospital, the doctor will ask you how many times have you been pregnant, how many kids have you delivered, right? So you could be or I don't remember if it's Guardia first or Previa first and then Guardia, but basically it's a number range. So you had, 5 pregnancies and only 4 births, meaning you somehow are successful unless you aborted yourself. But that's really the basis of it. Um, so I believe it was her first child. I don't remember. This was like so far back that I don't remember if there was a language barrier or not. But at the same time, it was kind of mostly on my end, more of like a oh shit panic mode type of thing. But at the same time, thankfully I had people with time that had time on were like, oh my God, we know what to do, you know. So I wasn't really paying attention to everything around me in that sense. Um, but most of the time for us, I know that it's going to be a easy or fast delivery once someone says that they've had children before or multiple children. Then it's kind of just like, all right, with I there's probably not even a point of going to the hospital at this moment because the baby's coming. We should probably set up, especially if uh, the contractions are like 2 minutes apart, then baby's coming soon, 100%.
And I guess uh, if they had a previous successful birth, also that's more of like a peace of mind. This will probably go well too. Does that play a degree or not really?
Uh, you know what? I don't like to think of it that way
Hmm.
because if you set yourself up for success early, like, oh yeah, this is gonna be easy, and then
Hmm.
the shit hits the fan, you're like, oh fuck, I wasn't ready for this,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So in my mind, I just take it for what it is. Oh, you had multiple babies. Okay, cool. I just know that the birth might be more explosive, where the baby will just pop right out. So
Hmm.
I know I have to be ready for that. But do I think of it more like, oh, it was successful before, so it's definitely going to be successful now?
Hmm.
I don't really think of it that way because you never know what happened in the past. Did she have, any type of surgery after that? Were there any complications after that? You kind of in that moment you're just there. You need to do whatever you need to do and take it for what it is.
Okay. All right. So that was your first one. You
That
had
was
some
the
people
first
around
one.
you that helped you out. What
Yeah.
what was the like dad doing in this whole time? Was he just kind of standing and like freaking
The dad
out? Was he
was
providing any
freaking out.
support?
The dad
Okay.
was freaking the fuck out. Well, which
Yeah.
is, imaginable, right?
Yeah.
Especially for a preemie and you don't know what's about to happen.
Hmm.
Um, so the dad was absolutely freaking the fuck out. He didn't really do much that I can think of. I think he came up and he tried to console with his wife. Uh, I don't remember if she had to at some point deliver the placenta. Or I don't remember if she did or not, but I mean, they definitely transported. So I don't remember if the placenta came out or not. But yeah, anyways.
Okay. So it sounded like four of you guys showed up to this, right? Two
Yeah, for this
cars?
one,
Okay.
right. For this one, it was four of us. There was one vehicle and one like beach patrol
Okay.
motorcycle thing.
Got you, got you. Wow,
Yeah.
that must have been nuts. The first delivery, you get there, the baby's already out. Did like in that moment when you saw the woman standing there in this whole situation, did 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 your mind like go to the training that you had, or were you more like, I hope these guys that are here will like help me out? Like
So
I'm just curious, where were you in that
so
moment?
my mind was just still kind of taking in the visual of what I'm seeing because
Mm-hmm.
it has to kind of relate back to your mind. We're like, yo, wait, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
And you see that, you're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. You do think back to the training, in most part, uh, but they don't train you for specific moments, not like because they can't give you training on every single thing that might happen, right?
Yeah.
So they never trained us on the toilet baby, or
Okay.
sorry for saying it that way, but you
Yeah,
know,
no, that's
right? We never got trained for that. It's like, oh shit, okay, cool. Let's just go with the basics, and that's usually what you refer to. You go right to your basics. At the time, I knew that my partner who grabbed the baby and started doing everything, I knew that he knows what he's doing. I'm 100% confident in him, and I'm happy that he's here with me right now for that first ever occurrence, especially for a first occurrence that's this, you know, kind of this fucked up in a sense, because it's not a normal birth. Um, yeah, so that's what went through my mind. I was just happy that he was there.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, no, I can imagine that. I actually just thought of another question that I want to ask you. Uh so I guess what I'm gathering too is when they train you for child delivery, they only kind of train you on if it goes like standard. They don't kind of give you a lot of insight on the variations of things could happen, like the preemie or
so
all the
so
different stuff that could
they
occur.
do variation, but they do variation where there's things that we can, I guess, that we can, how do you say, things that we can fix or try to fix, right?
Hmm.
Or real like life-threatening events where we can make a difference and the person, the baby and the mother can survive, right? With a preemie, there's really nothing that we can do overall that will change anything. If the baby comes out not breathing or in cardiac arrest, it's back to the basics, CPR, right? And in that sense, that's what exactly what happened, right? The baby kept going into respiratory arrest where we have to start CPR and breathe for it. So that's really what I'm trying to say. We have the basics that we go back to just in case there's situations that are like, I don't know, what if the baby comes out with, two heads and one body? Like, what do you do then? We don't go through that. That's something that's not a regular occurrence, right?
Yeah.
Um,
That'd be crazy
but
though if that happened.
right, because who do you ventilate?
Yeah, like what do you even like where do you even start? Yeah. Well, I
Right.
hope that doesn't happen
I
for
hope so
you.
not.
Yeah.
I just put it in myself. Oh, but with other things that like with other emergencies, like I said, with maybe a presenting cord, prolapse cord, or the cord around the neck, or a limb presentation, that's where we're trained more of, hey, if you see this, this is a really bad emergency, let's go, because this is in dire need of the baby's life.
So I guess it's
Um,
more like have a clear ability to assess what can you do in the moment, or should you even try, or rather just throw them in the car and get them to the hospital as soon as
yeah,
possible. So it's kind
yeah.
of like navigating that.
It's
That
risk versus, I mean, life versus death in a sense. If it's in the moment, life-threatening, and you can do something about it, do something about it. If
okay.
it's not in the moment, or if it's a limb presentation, there's nothing that we can do with a limb presentation because we don't
Mm-hmm.
know which way we can possibly turn the baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
To turn the baby, you would need to put a whole hand
Yeah.
up to turn. Um, so that's where they kind of call the limit of what we can do. We're not gonna cut the perineum, um, so that it's an easier delivery. We're not allowed to do that. That's more of the hospital. I guess we get paid like doctors if we're able to do that.
Yeah,
But
no, understandable. There's a certain extent to which they want you guys to provide help, and beyond that, it becomes more of a liability, I guess, if you try to mess with things that you're not familiar with.
I would well, 100%. If it's out of our scope of practice, then it's definitely illegal for us to do. So we can't just, out of nowhere be like, oh, what, I'm just gonna make a quick incision here and
Yeah.
oh, baby's here.
Perfect. She's out. Good. Um, Interesting. Wow, that must have been wild.
That was
Um,
fun. Yeah.
did you bounce right back after that, or was that, would you say, like, the kind of the novelty of this experience, was that something that stayed with you at all afterwards?
Well, I do remember it pretty well, so that's usually
Yeah.
indicator of like if it that kind of stayed with me or not. That's how I like think of things if they actually stayed with me. Because
Mm-hmm.
you'll ask me about jobs that I had, 2 days ago, and I'll be like, honestly, I don't really remember what I did 2 days ago. Because things become kind of mundane and the same after a while.
Yeah.
Um,
I
that
imagine also if you've seen a bunch of crazy stuff, like then like the less crazy stuff is like it
oh,
just
for sure,
goes when it's
for
done.
sure, for sure. Usually the less crazy and the obviously the less crazy stuff just goes away, and then the annoying stuff that stays. The annoying stuff or the funny stuff that
Mm-hmm.
usually stays,
Yeah.
or the gruesome funny stuff that usually stays.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, no, that's crazy. Thank you for sharing that with me. Okay, so give me another one. What's the next one you had
Uh,
after that? Or that you'd like to talk about?
the next one I had after that was another. This was another. Basically, she gave birth right as soon as we got there. Well, the last one wasn't, but this one was kind of like, oh, hey, ma'am, what's going on? She's sitting on the floor in the wintertime outside, cold concrete in front of a store, and she just spreads her legs and baby pops out.
So I remember you mentioned
Yeah.
this one to me on the phone. Let's pull back a little bit on this one because you just got us like straight to like the moment of when stuff is going down. So you get a call that what's happening? Who called? What's happening?
I have
Like,
no
what are you
idea.
expecting? Okay.
So one thing we don't know is usually when people call, we don't know who it is, or like it might say it in the text. I really
Mm-hmm.
don't remember anything leading up to when we came by
Okay.
because I guess nothing in that sense was to anything that kind of like screamed out, "Oh, hey, remember this?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Until we got to the scene and we're like, "Oh shit, I'm remembering this." Um, it was. I remember it was winter time because there was steam coming off the baby like no tomorrow. Uh, I remember it was obviously on the cold concrete. Uh, I remember exactly the area where it was at, which I mean, it was a very populated area. So I believe it was either the woman called or maybe her, I don't know, husband or someone, maybe that she called and told them to call 911.
Okay.
Uh, uh, she did not speak a lick of English.
Okay.
uh, French Creole only. But she was a champ. The baby was a champ.
So you get there, and what do you see?
We see that the woman is sitting on, basically leaning against a storefront initially. Then she kind of plops down and sits down onto the concrete
Mm-hmm.
sidewalk, opens her legs, and baby plops out. Just kind of like I don't want to compare it, but when cows give birth, when the well, what's
Yeah,
it called,
just
the floor
like,
just yeah.
is there like a crowd? Are there people
No,
like,
there wasn't a crowd because again, this was winter time. It was like I think it was like maybe I don't remember if it was a weekday or a weekend, but it was definitely in between the times of maybe like 8 a.m. and maybe up to 4 p.m. I don't remember exact time, but it was still daylight.
okay.
Uh, so no, definitely not 4 p.m. because then it would have been a little bit darker.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it was somewhere in the daytime.
Okay.
So there weren't much people on that specific corner. There were definitely people around. Uh, and I don't know, nobody really stopped and started looking, or at least not from my knowledge, because I wasn't really focusing on the people around us. To me, I was like, holy shit, did that just happen? Like,
So you actually saw the moment when the baby fell out of her.
yes, when the baby plopped out, yes.
So
That's
what?
why
Tell
when
me.
we were kind of like, oh, I hope the baby's okay, because the first thing they saw is obviously non-sanitized concrete floor.
Uh-huh. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
horrible. So what are you guys doing? So you got there, so now you're like, the
We're
baby
now
ready?
we're in full like, oh shit, we have to do something. We got tinfoil and sheets. Not tinfoil, but like is it
Like a
thermal
medical
the thermal
tent.
thermal blankets,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
which they're basically tinfoil.
Yeah.
We got the tinfoil, we got sheets, and we got sterile saline water. Uh, got the baby from the floor. The mom went from sitting down to stood right up, like not an issue at all. Uh, I believe my partner was holding the baby and like standing there with the mom. I went to go get the stretcher. Got the stretcher, got mom on the stretcher, put baby in her arms, wrapped around a little bit. Once we got into the ambulance, because it was frigid cold outside, uh, we kind of like, gained a little more, I guess, role in the scene because now we're inside, we're more comfortable, we have everything we need, right? We wiped down the baby, obviously made sure that the baby, we do the APGAR scale, which is, baby's heart rate, baby's breathing rate. It's basically a set standard of if the baby's doing well or not after the birth. We have to
Was
take
this
one.
child was this child like full term?
Yeah, full. I mean, I think it was full term.
Okay.
Uh, I don't remember the basis of it, but it looked full term. It didn't look like it was a preemie or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so obviously the initial color was it always is a little bit blue-ish, with the lips. So, but the APGAR scale within 5 minutes, perfect. Baby was 100% fine. Goo goo gaga, a little bit of crying. Mom was like nothing happened, kind of just chilling. We get a Creole translator over the phone. This was her like maybe fourth, fifth baby. Uh, so that's why I just flopped. She said that her water broke and she started feeling the contractions, called someone or whatever it was. I don't remember that for sure. And she felt like the baby was coming, so she sat down on the floor.
She didn't even think to go inside. She
I
said,
mean,
I guess, like, was it just like happening so fast? I guess she didn't.
I
Wow.
guess, I guess I really don't know what was going through her mind.
And so
Though
she,
this,
so she was like, do you think she was fine, like genuinely fine, or do you think she was fine, like she was like suppressing, excuse me, suppressing like the flow of emotions in that moment?
no, she seemed like, you know what? I'll be honest. She seemed like nonchalant, like, oh, okay, the baby's here. I was surprised. My partner, she was a female partner at the time, good friend of mine, love her to death, and and she was actually also Haitian, but she didn't speak Creole, and she was like, I I don't know what to tell you. I'm like, Jay, what the fuck? And she was like, Tim, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you on that one. I'm like, okay, whatever. And the lady was very calm. I guess maybe she's definitely given birth a few times before, because to her
It
it was just kind of like, huh.
it sounds like she may have given birth on concrete before even.
I mean,
I mean,
I don't,
considering how chill she was about the whole thing.
I don't want to assume, but she's definitely given birth in worse conditions probably, because it's like, dude, are you serious right now? But that one was interesting. But like I said, that one was like the baby was totally fine. The baby was grabbing on my finger. I remember that because I always love that. That's so cute when the babies do that. Um, but besides that, like I was like, yeah, yo, this baby's perfect. Shit, what are you gonna do?
That's
Take
so.
him to the hospital.
How many years now into your this work are you that the second incident occurs?
That was all. I think. So when did I start working with January? So I think that was like maybe fourth year. So around third, fourth year, around there, somewhere in
Okay.
that time frame.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and that was great. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. It
Well,
was gnarly.
it definitely sounds tremendously uh less scary than, oh, maybe not tremendously, but it sounds somewhat less scary than the first experience that you described.
Right. I mean, you go into it, and when you see whatever happens, you kind of think to yourself like, oh my God. Oh my God, I hope this kid doesn't have brain trauma right now. I hope they're not like have increased intracranial pressure because maybe they have a brain bleed because the first thing they saw is concrete. So I'm like, because this is just gonna, what do I do first? Do I treat that? Is the baby gonna be breathing? Oh my God, what am I doing? You start thinking about your training and the possibilities of whatever might be going on, that could be going on. And at the same time, you're like, holy shit, that baby just hit the concrete. So you have multiple things going through your head. But
Yeah.
I was totally happy that that one was nice and chill and clear, and nothing major happened on that one.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. You know, it's interesting. I feel like this is like something I learned after I had a kid. There's this idea that, and like, not to encourage anybody to like drop their kids or not watch their kids enough for them to fall, but there's this idea that, everyone is always so terrified of kids
Mhm.
like getting hurt at this really really early age. And I read somewhere that like infants actually tend to be a lot more resilient and stronger than like people kind of assume. And obviously, we want people to take better care of their kids than not, but I feel like I heard like in general, if kids fall or these kinds of things happen, odds are they actually don't get hurt like as much as people would assume.
Right.
So that could have been playing a part in that. But that kid started with a rough start, huh?
Listen,
I
started from
hope
the
it's
bottom.
better. I
Started from
hope
the bottom.
I hope it's better on from that
I
point
think
for
anything
this
is better
kid.
than that. And
what a crazy start to life.
I completely agree with you, and I'm not saying from medical training or anything, but
Mm.
remember, we were both raised in former Soviet Union, where all well outdoor swings and everything were cast iron. Everything was steel, rusted over, and we would play and just get fucked up all day long, right? How many people have had like the slide hit their forehead, bust their forehead open, and break bones on there? It was kind of like a survival of the fittest.
Tim, uh, literally, I look back to some of my childhood memories, and I moved to America when I was 12. So, like, the first, younger years of my life, they were all in Russia. And man, one of the things that shocked me when I came here is how nice the playgrounds are and how everything is like soft and
With the
padded.
soft thing, right? The
Yeah,
soft
like and
pattern.
and I remember being like 12 and thinking, "Oh my god, I'm so pissed that I missed like that whole younger part of my life where I could really utilize these playgrounds." I mean, I still went on. I would be like the only teenager amongst like all the children. But the type of places we used to play in back in the day, I have this very distinct memory of we had some like friends of the family that we would go visit pretty often. We lived in Moscow, and this was like a little bit outside of Moscow. And in front of their building, there were these. It's like here's the building, here's the street. There's like yard where it's like half-ass playground, and
Oh
then
yeah,
there were these.
with the tires, the
Yeah,
tire potted tires.
yeah. And then there were like in the middle, there was like another building on the other side, and in between there were these giant cement pipes that I feel like maybe used to serve some sort of a purpose back in the day, but were not anymore. They were just like abandoned giant cement pipes. And as kids, we would go inside of them and we would jump on top of them, like through the gaps. And they were like I want to say like 5 to 7 feet high. Like in hindsight, we could have fell and got so hurt. And that was totally normal. It wasn't even, and I remember like my mom's friend that we would go visit, she would like look out the window and see me like bouncing around on these cement pipes and just be like, all right, cool, you're having a good time. All right,
Right.
like see you guys later when you're done playing. No,
Such a more
it's
simpler time. Such a simple
it
time.
it's nuts. And now I'm a mom, and if I would never even let my kids step foot anywhere near that kind of thing. So it's really wild. It's wild. No, that's crazy. So that's that's a really crazy story. I can't even imagine that. Um okay. So you have I hope maybe you have another experience you might want to share.
I mean, honestly, those were like the ones that were uh the most graphic and crazy.
Okay.
Uh, every other birth that I've had was actually not tough, pretty easy. Very natural, baby came out, everything went by the book, legitimate, perfect. The only other time where it was kind of more of a like a panic situation, panic scenario, was with a Muslim woman. So I think it was me and my male partner at the time. I was still an EMT, and we get the job, yada yada yada. I think it probably came over as a woman in labor, right? I think it was that. It would have to be because there was a lieutenant on scene that basically. All right. So, anyways, we get there. Uh, we see the woman's pregnant. It's her mother-in-law, I'm assuming, and her husband. They both get into the ambulance. We place the woman on the stretcher. Great. And I'm asking questions. I could see like the contractions were maybe like 5 to 6 minutes apart. I don't remember exactly what it was. Uh, and we had one of our bosses there, and he says, "Well, she wants to go to Brooklyn Hospital, which is pretty far. This job was in Coney Island at the time, and she wanted to go to Brooklyn Hospital, which is the other side of Brooklyn." And me and my partner look at each other, we're like, "Oh man, that because that kind of risks the fact that you know it might be an ambulance baby, and we're not really in the mood to get messy or whatever." But all right, I told my partner, I'm like, yo, just jet, go as fast as possible,
Why did
right?
they want to go there?
That was their birthing clinic, I guess, or well,
Ah, okay.
birthing hospital. A lot of people
Okay.
plan on these things, but when it happens, we are taking you to the closest. Like if the baby's coming out, I'm sorry, if I don't have authorization to take you somewhere, I'm not taking
Hmm.
you there because there's like the baby's gonna come out.
But in that moment, you assessed the situation and you felt you guys had
So
enough time?
our again, that was again, I was maybe 3 4 years on.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't have as much say or much of a voice like I do now in a sense,
Okay.
because you kind of with more time, you know more of the regulations. You're kind of like, no, I'm not doing that,
Hmm.
right? With this one, the boss said, oh yeah, you guys can go. I got you guys the authorization, and I just put my tail between my legs and just said, okay, boss, we'll go. Was a bad idea. Uh, I told my partner to just jet it, right? And while I'm sitting in the back, there's a barrier, language barrier, major language barrier. It kind of started feeling like one of the movies where, I mean, I don't want to be, not being biased or anything, but it seemed like a movie to me because I relate things to movies a lot. And her mother is praying very loudly in Arabic. My partner's driving like a maniac, so I'm like this in the truck, right? So I'm feeling like it's like one of those like, I don't know, Iraqi war videos or like whatever, some one of those videos because mom is praying, the guy's there, he's angry, my partner's driving crazy. I'm like, oh my God, the ambulance is about to explode. This is so horrible.
Hmm.
I'm like, fuck, fuck, fuck. All
What
right.
about the mom? What about the woman in labor? What
The
like?
woman, she's screaming, she's oh, and I don't understand what anyone's saying because there's no English. So I'm
Hmm.
like, I try to focus in on the situation. I asked the dad, I'm like, sir, can you look? And I'm like in between her legs, I'm like kind of like, pointing or, visualizing it for him. Uh, because in a sense, I have to look to see if there's any crowning. Because I noticed that her contractions started getting closer and closer together. And at that point, they were like maybe 2 minutes to a minute apart. Because I was sitting there with my watch like this. I'm like, oh man, her contractions are closer and closer together. Oh man, fuck, fuck, fuck. And I told him to look, and I don't know if he got it, but he definitely looked. He looked and he's like, okay, okay, good, good. I'm like, no head, baby head, and no. He's like, oh, good, good, good. I'm like, all right, because at the same time, I want to respect their religion. I don't want to, be like, oh, hey, fuck you. I'm looking at your wife's badge. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not a fucking asshole.
But I feel like in that particular situation, is it that would make you an asshole? Like you're just being a professional.
No, no, for sure. But at the same time, if I can't verbally explain to the guy what I'm doing,
Okay.
maybe he's expecting, maybe in wherever he's from, I don't know, Yemen, Jordan, whatever it was, maybe in their country, when an ambulance comes, they don't do that. And then
Okay.
if I suddenly go and start opening his wife's legs to look down with no
Hmm.
real explanation of what I'm doing, that can be taken as, hey, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
That can make the
Yeah.
situation a little uncomfortable,
Yeah.
to say the least,
So it
right?
sounds like in that moment, your gut feeling was like, if I do this, I might make this worse with these people. So
100%.
this would be the
100%.
better way to handle it. Okay.
100%.
I got it.
If
Makes sense.
unfortunately, if we had that language open where we can have dialogue, I can explain it to them, which I usually do, and then it would be much easier, right?
Yeah.
But in that sense, I was like, I just had to ask him to try to look or whatever. And finally, we arrive at the hospital. She is already starting that natural breathing technique where she's already like, I could see it. I'm like, oh man. All right. We put her onto the hospital stretcher and she opens up her legs with the what's called birthing staff around, and I'm looking at the baby's head like coming out and pushing on underwear. I'm like, dude, we're seriously. But listen, everything went well, everything went great, gave birth normally, so At the end of the day, it wasn't an ambulance, baby, but it should have been really.
That sounds intense as hell.
That was definitely intense, in the fact that like, you're kind of you're ready to give birth, or you're ready to assist the birth, but when you're already set your mind like, oh no, this isn't going to be an ambulance, baby, we're good, and you're going to a place, but now it's kind of like almost like you have that anxiety of, oh my God, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Are we going to get there? Are we going to get there? Are we going to beat the clock? Beat the clock. So I guess we kind of beat the clock with a little bit of cheating.
Okay, okay. Have you I'm curious because, obviously working in New York City, working in Brooklyn, the stories you essentially you mentioned to me three stories, and in all of them, one of the things that connects them is that there was a language barrier in almost every single situation. Um have you or like your colleagues had experiences where um like I guess like a cultural boundary was not considered in like something like this, and then it became like a bigger deal? I'm just curious, like if you are aware of these kinds of
I
experiences.
mean, I know of some people having experience sometimes, like coming into a mosque. I know some people have had issues where if they don't take off their shoes, right? But then most people are gonna be like,
Even in the case of an emergency.
right. So, but nothing came of it. Uh, but at the same time, I understand it. If it's nothing crazy, if it's something like, oh, this guy, has stomach ache, whatever, I wouldn't mind. I don't care. My boots are unzipped anyways, which you're not really supposed to have, but whatever, if it's more comfortable. Like, I'll take my boots off because it's carpeted anyways. I'll be in my socks. I can walk up. I can show that respect. But if it's something like major and serious, I really don't care. I'm coming in. I'm not wasting time to take off my boots and putting them back on again. And then if I'm with my boots on and then something falls on my foot and I break my foot, now it's kind of on me. I never had my boots on. The company I work for won't cover me in that sense. It's not a work-related injury anymore because now I took off the PPE that was protecting my foot, right? Or let's say, I don't know, a knife falls that already cut them, and God forbid, so the person has AIDS or HIV or whatever, and then it falls and cuts my foot because now it's exposed, right? Now, technically speaking, I'm not covered because I didn't have the proper PPE, personal protective equipment on.
Yeah. Do they are there any kind of trainings or discussions that they have with you guys, like in terms of how to balance like taking care of lives but also being considerate of like these cultural nuances, or is it just kind of like, you know, situation by situation, you just figure it out?
I mean, they can't go through every single religion and every single,
Yeah.
sect of people and what they believe in and whatnot. You know,
Mhm.
but obviously we do go through the main ones, and we'll do like little examples of people like Jehovah's Witnesses, right? They usually don't want any type of medication, and they'll refuse the medication, and in a sense, we have to respect that, even if it's life saving. So if it's life threatening in that moment, and they tell us, no, no way, you're not doing this to me, it's against my religion, then we have a protocol. If the patient's refusing that, we call our doctor. It's like the city doctor or whatever. We'll tell the doctor the situation. If the doctor deems that this person is out of their mind right now, and they need it, then we might have to put the patient to sleep, sedate them, and then give the medication to life sustain. Or the doctor may say, you know what, yeah, this is the person's, right. This is what he believes in or she believes in. Don't touch the patient. Just take them to the hospital. If something happens on the way, then you work with that. If they go into cardiac arrest, you start CPR and ventilations.
That's such a crazy thing. And again, it's like another one of those elements that I would have never even thought about. I wouldn't have even considered, had you not mentioned it to me right now in your experiences. This reminds me of like a Grey's Anatomy episode. Not to bring up Grey's Anatomy. There's an episode about like a family who came in, and I think they had like the daughter was dying and she needed blood transfusion,
Hmm.
and they were of a certain religion that was against blood transfusion. And like the whole drama of the episode was that the doctor was like, if we don't do the blood transfusion, the patient is going to die. And they were
Right.
like, yes, but it's against our religion, and
Right.
like God will
And
save her.
this is God's will.
And like she
Yeah.
doesn't need that. And I don't remember exactly, but I feel like what happened was they like ended up giving the blood transfusion anyway, because the doctors were just like, she's gonna die, like she's literally gonna die if you don't
Yeah.
do this. And then that became like a whole explosive thing. So it's such a crazy thing to navigate that, because you know, working in like your type of field, or like being a doctor, I feel like naturally the number one thing you're concerned with is like the physical state of
Hmm.
the person you're next to. And then you bring in all these other elements, and it's just like, oh my God, just let me save a life. Like,
Right.
don't give me all that nonsense. I'm just trying to save a life. So I imagine that that could be challenging
So
in your work.
it's listen. Anytime you deal with other people, it's always challenging, right? Even like a lot of the times that you'll have, you know, parents with their children where you have to do something to treat their children, and if they refuse, right? Now, what are you doing? Is this considered a parent who's being abusive to the child?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this parent, you know, completely in their right to refuse something for their child, right? We can get into that whole debate about, you know, like what's it called, vaccinations and whatever. But this is a little deeper than that, where it's more like, hey, your kid just fell, you know, 3 times their height head first. They need to go get checked out. And the parent might say, you know what? No, I don't want my kid getting checked out. You know, in that type of scenario, you kind of, to make things easier, you kind of have to almost, you know, you can't force anyone, but you have to try to talk as much game as possible to try to get this person to get their kid checked out.
Has
You
this
know,
happened? Has this kind of thing happened to you, where you
a hundred
like
percent,
you
a
dealing with
hundred
like
percent.
parents who don't want
Yes,
you to give
yes,
assistance? Can you
yes.
talk to me about that at all?
I mean, it's happened. I mean, there's nothing that really like sticks out in my mind because it's usually, you know, it's the same process always. You
Mm-hmm.
kind of start arguing with people about, hey, you know, they need to go. There's nothing that specifically will pop up in my head right now,
Mm-hmm.
um, because I've been working overnights for a long time, and usually those jobs would come from like a school. So if
Okay.
a school calls in, because something happened to a kid, even if it's a scratch, they'll call 911. I don't know why. I guess it's their policies most of the time now. And once we get there, there's really, so the only person who can refuse medical treatment, and if it's allowable, let's say if it is like, you know, a scratch on the hand, right? Um, the parent can authorize transport. If the parent isn't reachable, then the principal of the school can say, "Oh, I'll take responsibility. They can stay here." You know. But there are instances where it's something more serious, like let's say it was allergic reaction, right? Anaphylaxis, and the kid just got stabbed up with 2 EpiPens at school
Mm-hmm.
and they're still kind of tight, and I'll give them a treatment of epi as well through IM, intramuscular, right? Uh, in that type of case, it's like, well, this kid needs to go. If the parent calls and says, "Oh no, I don't want my child going anywhere," it's like your kid's about to lose their airway, and then they won't be able to do anything. We can't even intubate once their airway is completely locked up or completely swollen. There's no way we can pass a tube through. Like, well, no, I don't want my kid going, they'll be fine. In that type of scenario, it's more like, yeah, sorry, you're not here, you're not stopping me. I'm gonna request the police to escort me or meet me at the hospital. In that type of case, you might also have to write out a possible child abuse form because we are mandated reporters, and something that is that serious, we have to account for in a serious manner where unfortunately, even if you're the best parent in the world, we still have to write up a ACS case.
No, that makes sense. And it's interesting you brought this up because I was actually just going to ask you with the follow-up question of um it's borderline abuse. Like if you're on the scene and you can help a child and the parent is like, no, do not help him, and then God forbid the child is not alive, like is it almost kind of a case where like the parent is at fault because that happened because they didn't let the person who was on scene helping the child do
Right.
their job? That's tough. It's definitely a very, very nuanced line of work that
Yeah.
you're in.
I mean, sometimes you do have to, even like little things. I remember one that recently happened. It wasn't even anything like crazy. It was honestly like it was an honest mistake. It was an accident, and you could see that the parent was very loving. Uh, I stopped by a gas station. Literally remember exactly which gas station too. It's on Garrison and Avenue U, or
Hmm.
Knapp and Avenue U, basically. Uh, I went in because I know they're late. They're open all night, right? They have like sandwiches, random snacks, chips, blah blah blah. I don't know why. I was in the mood for some like junk food. I got like a sandwich or something, and maybe I forgot like maybe beef jerky and a soda. I walk back into the ambulance. I sit down, and at the same time, I'm pumping fuel into diesel fuel into the ambulance. I'm sitting there. I'm like nom nom nom, and I kind of look ahead of me, and I see what I feel like is a naked kid, and I'm like, I look at my partner. I'm like, yo, am I bugging, or is there a naked kid in front of us?
Hmm.
And I see this kid walking up to some dude with a taxi cab. And my partner's like, yo, that is a kid, but no, he's not naked. I'm like, no, but he's basically shirtless with like
How
underwear
old?
on.
How old?
So I'm horrible with ages. This kid was actually, I think, seven or
Okay.
6 or 7. Um, and I'm like, I don't know, whatever, little toddler, right?
Hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, but this kid's naked. Look, he doesn't have shoes on. He's outside. There's no shoes, no socks. He's underwear. And my partner's like, yeah, it's a little weird. I'm like, yo, I think this kid's lost. And we're like both like, fuck, I think we have a missing kid. All right. So we pull up, the taxi driver's there trying to talk to him. We come out, we're like, hey, this is your kid? He's like, no, no, I don't know, whatever, whatever, whatever. We're like, yeah, we figured. Get him in the back of the ambulance. We're like, hey, what's up? What's going on? What's your name? I do remember the name. I'm not gonna say it because it might be, HIPAA.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Um, what's it called? The kid tells us his name. We're like, where do you live? He's not really sure where he lives, so he doesn't know the address, or obviously. Um, but I saw him walking out from where there's like where the gas station keeps like their trash there, and he came out from like that area, which was weird to me because I know that that's the trash area, right? So I don't know if the kid has been hiding there or whatever, right? Finally, the cops show up. I was inside with my partner, and we had a student ride along with us that day. And so the cops come by, and I tell the cops, listen, I saw him coming out of that area. If one of you guys can come with me, because I don't want to be alone going into some random area, right? Just in case. Plus, you guys have body cameras. We don't.
Hmm.
Maybe that'll keep us safer-ish, whatever.
Yeah.
So I go and investigate, and I like to investigate. That's always fun. We go back, and this whole garbage area is then connected by one small, like, push out gate to a whole backyard of I'm not going to say it's an apartment complex, but it's like townhouses, like 3-floor townhouses, or no, 2-floor townhouses. And every single one has their own like separate door that goes out into this yard, and then there's another gate that goes into this like garbage area. So
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, I would have never guessed this, right?
Hmm.
So me and the cops start like just knocking on every door possible. Finally, one woman comes out. Oh, we had one person that opened the door. They're like, "Oh yeah, we do know of a boy like that. I think that he lives on one of those doors over there, whatever." Finally, woman answers. We're like, "Hey, do you have a son? What's his name?" She says the right name. Or like, "Where's your son right now?" She's like, he's supposed to be at grandma's house, which lives a few doors down. We're like, okay, all right, so don't panic. We have him right now. We found him at the gas station. Don't panic. What I'm more concerned about is let's see if grandma's okay because why? How did he get out of grandma's house?
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
We go knock on grandma's door. Grandma comes out. Daughter obviously goes wild. She's like, "Where's what happened? How'd my son get out?" And she's like, "What? What do you mean? Who got out? Oh my God, no! Oh my God, he was in bed. What are you talking about?" So the kid just basically like woke up out of his sleep and I guess was confused. He was looking for grandma. Grandma was in the kitchen and he walked out. So like completely innocent story, right? Once the kid was outside, not for long. Finally, moms and grandma are hugging him, kissing him, crying, yada yada yada. Obviously, there's a loving situation. It's not out of malice. We still have to do one of those reports because even though we're not, you know, it's called a uh, suspected child abuse mandation form. But anyways, even though we know that, or like we sense that this is like nothing, we still have to do the paperwork. And then ACS follows up just in case, just in case this could be something.
I mean, how lucky are these people that you guys just happen to be at that gas station?
Oh, that was just
Jesus Christ.
honestly
Like, if you
that's
guys weren't
never
there,
that's never happened to me before. I mean, honestly, the cab driver was there, so I would hope that the cab driver would call 911, right?
yeah,
Unless he was some, you know, freak, God
yeah,
forbid.
yeah.
But yeah, that was one of those times where I was like, I don't know how. My partner, he's also well, my this is my former partner. This was like maybe a year ago, even less than a
Hmm.
year ago when this happened. My partner was like, yo, God wanted us to be there. I'm like, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, look, I know that everybody varies in their opinion of
Right.
like spirituality, religion, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, when I hear stories like that, when it's like the right place, the right time, the right people, and you're just there because you literally just said you're like, I don't know what possessed me to like want junk food right now. And then
Right.
it's like in a weird way, it's like, well, maybe that's what it was. It was like without you knowing, you had to
I
be at
guess.
that spot, but like not for the reason that you thought. But it's that's nuts. Thankfully everything worked out.
Yeah.
My daughter is gonna be 3. I have been teaching her our house address from the moment she started speaking. Like
That's
literally, she knows she knows her full name, and she knows our full house address. And now I'm like trying to teach her the phone number because literally my thought is like, God forbid, for whatever reason, I ever got separated from her. Um, I need her to know how to answer that question.
right.
What's your name and where do you live?
Right.
We actually, my husband and I, we made like a little song. We like made up a song of our address that we sing with her so
That's
that
actually really cute.
so that's like the easiest way.
The other thing I tell people is, I mean, you said that was an easy way to teach a song, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, but my easy solution would be a medical bracelet.
Yeah.
So you know how you
Just
have like
have it
allergy
on.
bracelets? Just a bracelet, little bracelet with name, birthday, and address or phone number, or both.
Yeah.
I think that would be really easy. And then we told the mom as well. We're like, listen, if the kid does this often, or not even if it doesn't even do this often, maybe you should set some like they do have in Florida. I think they're mandatory in Florida. The sliding doors for like the outside pool, you're supposed to have alarm set up. Anytime you open it, the alarm goes off. So put some of those on, around the house, any like door that goes outside or some dangerous place. If the kid does this, but she said that this isn't, usual for him. This is the first time he ever like went outside by himself. So
Poor baby. Well, I'm
it
glad
happens.
everything worked out. You
We,
guys were
we've
there.
yeah, we've
And
had instances where we got called 911 jobs where we'll have the job and it comes over as a baby walking on the street. And you get there and it's a baby in diapers, no shoes, no nothing, just walking down in like 3 a.m. in the hood. And it's like, baby. It's kind of like the, what's it called? the skit that Dave Chappelle did. Hey, what you doing there, baby? I'm
Yeah.
selling weed. So that's what it
He's,
feels like. And
yeah.
it's sad, of course, but at the same time, you're like, what the, hey, baby, what you doing here, baby? But
Yeah.
yeah, it's babies that walk out of the house. The parents might be sleeping. Sometimes it's malice, right? Sometimes the parents are neglecting, not
Mm-hmm.
paying attention whatsoever, and babies walk out. And it's like, that's a scam report that should stand. You come into the house later on if you're checking on the house, and it's usually disgusting, or most of the time, it's, but yeah.
Yeah. That's wild. So, how do you like? How do you process all the stuff that you work with every day? Like, how do you like? I don't know. When you go home, do you have hobbies? Like, how do you
Oh,
ease
hell yeah. That's
the
so many hobbies.
burden? I guess I don't know. Like, what do you do in your non-saving life times
So
of your
many,
life?
so many hobbies. So many hobbies.
Okay, like
Um,
what?
I'm big on the outdoors because I feel like we're surrounded by a concrete jungle, and you just need to get out and live a more sedentary type, well, not sedentary, but more of a serene kind of natural life sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Get away from the technology, get away from everything that pollutes us with like social media, blah, 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 things that just don't matter really, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's like one of those things that where my mind completely just goes blank and I'm not thinking about anything, just primal survival stuff where, hey, I need some wood. I need some wood for this fire. Keep the fire going, keep the fire going. Hey, you know what? Now I can just kind of sit back, relax, and do whatever. Then I'll set up some coffee on the fire, whatever, have a nice cup of coffee, or maybe some alcohol, whatever, nothing
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Definitely gotta
Uh,
have alcohol. Jeez.
you
I
know
can't
what?
imagine. I can't imagine not drinking in your line of work, or doing some sort of a vice, anything,
So
whatever.
that's the issue. A lot of people do fall into vices to kind of, you know, I guess it's their release from the stuff that they see on this job. And I do know a lot of people that are heavily into alcohol, like heavily. I'm not saying, just have a drink here and there, but like straight up alcoholics. I know people, unfortunately, I have uh, two that are very close to me, but three people that I know personally that have overdosed, you know, because of, I guess, experiences from this job. Um, so that's the like sad truth behind it, that a lot of first responders overall, not just, EMTs, paramedics, firefighters, cops, a lot of people that see a lot of things sometimes can't really deal with it overall. And unfortunately, their vices become something that's endangering to their lives, right? Um, but for me, luckily, I guess I have more, I don't know, I've been lucky enough to find other ways, even though I don't feel like I'm doing these things to kind of release from work overall. To
Mhm.
me, it's more like release from this city, because I feel like New York City is unhealthy, completely unhealthy for anyone. Um,
I feel like it makes sense. Like to me, I'm also a nature lover. Um, I'm all about like going out in the woods, going to the beach, walk by the ocean, like all these kinds of things. I agree with you. Like I feel like we live in this very tech focused society, and over time it seems like people who live in cities are sort of losing um like even this ability like they don't even understand what's the reason why somebody would go out in the woods when like you have a house with heat and TV. But I
they're
feel
like,
like
oh,
for
ew,
somebody like
ew,
you,
bugs.
yeah, but I feel like for somebody like you know, who's like your day-to-day life is literally kind of dealing with these life or death situations. Returning to nature is essentially it's I think it's the best way to process it because you're kind of like, you understand how fragile life is and how certain things just don't matter. And what really matters is like living in the moment. And when you're out in the woods, you're out in nature and everything's quiet and you're kind of a part of it all. I feel like that's, again, like, you know, maybe I share this sentiment because I'm similar. Like,
Right.
it's
And,
when I
and I
feel the
would
most at ease.
and I would totally agree with all that you said. I'm almost like, aw, aw, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it does feel. So one thing that you said that really resonates is that with this line of work, you kind of start appreciating life more,
Mm-hmm.
and you start kind of living in the moment. It's more so it's kind of like, when God forbid you find out, if you're sick with something, right? Um, the usual killer, right? Cancer, right? If you have someone in your family, which everyone does, right? Everyone has someone in their family that's had cancer or has passed from cancer or something of that sort, right? Um, in my theory, with this job, you're so close to that realization where it's not just happening to you and your family. You see it daily. You see people die from different ages, right? They could be a newborn that just passed. It could be a 1 year old. It could be a 12-year old. It could be at any point of your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it comes so quick and without any warning that it's kind of like, oh shit. You reflect on yourself and you think, hey, what is it that I can do in life to make my life better, or to make my life more seem more, I guess, productive, or to make me more happier about what I've lived or where I've lived or how I've lived, right? And to me, that sense has always been, outdoors, traveling. I'm one of the biggest advocates on traveling. Anyone who has a passport or doesn't have a passport, I tell them, yo, you're stupid, get a passport. Especially if
Mm-hmm.
you live in America, that's one of the strongest things that like everyone in the world wants an American passport so they can go anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else has so many restrictions about where they can go. You live in America, get your passport, go travel. You don't have to be a millionaire to travel. You can travel with the bare minimum. You don't have to be in like a five-star hotel. You could be in a shitty like Airbnb with, a fan. Fuck it. You're not comfortable. Big fucking deal. Go outside, enjoy it. You're not there to stay in the room, right? And that's one of my biggest things that I advocate to a lot of people is just go travel because you're going to see that you're so much smaller and your problems are so much smaller than you realize them to be in life. Um, yeah, and I feel like traveling makes people feel better about themselves, first of all, and it makes you more cultured, makes you understand, other societies, other languages, other, what's it called, cultures, more than just being in New York and seeing it here, New
Absolutely.
York culture is much different than, a culture that's there.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I agree with you 100%. It makes you like just exposure makes you more empathetic. It makes you see things differently. It makes you understand that, what you consider to be like standard day-to-day life is not the same for everybody. And I just think in general, it just makes you like a better, more open-minded human being. And not just in a sense of like you said, like it's not about just traveling, staying at fancy hotels. It's about like seeing what life is like
Mhm.
outside of where you are and understanding that you got to be like open-minded and see
I
that people don't think the same way that you do.
Right. I say that it's a understanding that a lot of people lost of life can be enjoyed with simple things. It's not, we all love a little luxury, materialism. Everyone does. We live in the
Mm-hmm.
world of materialism right now, right? No matter what you say, no matter what anyone says about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We all have things. We all want things. We all get things, right? We're very quick on, hey, I want it. I got it. I just got it on Amazon, 2 days shipping. Fuck yeah.
Yep, 2 days. They
Right.
even do same day now. Like I don't
Right.
even know how they do it. How the hell do
Right.
they do it?
It's magic. But then when you put yourself into a, let's say a forest, right? And you just give yourself those little necessities like water, food, fire, and a shelter. And if you can find comfort in that, you almost Buddhism says you find like the yeah, they're looking for the ultimate, what is it? Enlightenment, right? The ultimate enlightenment or full enlightenment. And when a person comes to that, you've realized that you've achieved your goals in life or whatever. I feel like that's where you get your enlightenment. When you realize that you can survive and you can do things and you can be happy and entertained with the most bare minimum things of food, water, shelter, and a fire to keep you warm. And understanding that, in my opinion, is one of those things that brings you to enlightenment where you kind of start enjoying life a little better, where you're kind of like, oh man, you get into a shitty situation or whatever, you like, oh man, I have to pay off $4,000 in credit card bills or whatever. Yeah, it's gonna happen within time, but I have to limit myself to random bullshit that I order. It's not that bad. You'll pay it off. It's not nothing crazy. You shouldn't be worried about something so minor. You can enjoy yourself without spending a lot of money, no matter what you do or where you are. If you don't have a car, if you can't pay for gas, if you could ride a bicycle somewhere, right? You can ride a bicycle to the mountains. It might be
Yep.
a long ride. I
Yeah.
can't ride a bike, so I can't
Yeah.
talk about it because I can't ride a bike. But there's always possibilities. If you're not, go to Staten Island. Staten Island has like hiking areas and whatever. The closest go
Wait,
there.
you don't know how to ride a bike? You're out there saving lives every day, but you don't know how to ride a bike?
No, I don't. Came
You
here.
need to learn how to ride a bike.
Funny story. Came here in 1992, right? We were poor as dogs. So like my parents never bought me a bike. The first bike I ever had, I'm gonna incriminate my father right now. The first bicycle I ever had was a tricycle. It was a big wheel, and because we were broke, my father stole it. He knew that I wanted one because when I saw the commercials on like
That's
basic
a good
TV,
father. That's a
yeah,
good father.
he stole it. It was just like laying there in some person's yard that was open, and he just took it and booked it. But again, this is, I'm not gonna say that my father's like some thief, but this is like way back in the day when we first came to
Yeah.
America, and we're poor as fuck. So yeah, that was the only bike I ever had. It was a big wheel, so it's three wheels. So I never really had a bicycle to learn on. And then like a few years ago, I actually bought a real bicycle, a mountain bike. I tried to ride it a couple of times. I kind of got it, but I haven't done like long distance. I've done like, on the block with like, oh my God, like a little kid.
Yeah.
But listen, what I lack in skills of riding bike, I can rollerblade, I can ice skate,
Okay.
hockey.
Okay. Okay. All right. All
So-
right. That makes up for it. The rollerblading makes up for it.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. Yeah, 'cause I'm a cool
That's
kid.
cool. Yeah. Yeah. No. No. That's. Agree with you with all the stuff. Going out in nature. Everything that you said. It's just grounding. Ultimately, it's grounding, and it's an essential part of. It should be an essential part of everybody's life,
It
no
should
matter
be.
how intense or not intense your life is.
I agree.
Do you see yourself doing this kind of work like into the old age, or do you feel like there's going to be a point that you may not want to do it anymore? Like, obviously you're still young, you're still early in your career.
Mm,
Like, what are your
young.
thoughts? You're young,
Uh,
man. Stop.
eh. So, I mean, this type of work is physically as it is mentally draining, it is physically draining, right?
Hmm.
Um, a lot of people do get hurt, because of lifting and carrying and all the issues that happen. We've Assaults have been through the roof lately. Like the past few years have been crazy with assaults on EMS members. Um, so career-wise, will I stay here in a sense? Yes, but with moving up. Um, I'm not planning to stay a paramedic my whole career. Uh, Actually, I'm planning. I just recently took an exam for a lieutenancy, and hopefully that comes up soon, and I can move on with a career. I think I've done my due diligence with the time I've served on the streets, how we say. And I've had, 11 years on the streets with the New York City agency, and then I've had, another year on the streets with private ambulances. So I feel like, I've served the correct amount of time to get that experience, to get people to respect me for the paramedic or the EMT I was. And I feel like to me that's important because it's more like you can't be a leader and tell people what to do when you were a scumbag and you didn't do those things, that you're telling people to do.
You got to get your hands dirty before you can tell other people to do so.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
At least, in my theory. So, But yeah, I feel like I will be staying in the field overall. I might
Hmm.
not be doing the same work hands-on, but I will still be there maybe as a supervisor role, and then who knows, maybe I'll
What's
move up even further.
okay? So I was gonna say, what's the highest position that you could reach in this? Like,
Well,
what do you
in
aspire to? What's like the ultimate
in
goal?
in my agency, which I'm not going to mention,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh, it would be the highest role would be the chief of the department.
Okay.
Do I strive to be that far up? Not really,
Okay.
because that's more of a, I mean, I'm not going to get political, but that's more of a political spot. Got to get
Mm-hmm.
your knee pads and, so not that far up, but I would like to move up because at the end of the day, no matter how young you think I am, which I don't think I'm young anymore, uh, you have to kind of plan for the future.
How old
And
are you?
I'm 35.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm
Uh,
34.
well, turning 36 this April,
Yeah,
so
if you're gonna say you're old, then you're making me feel old, and I'm
listen,
not old, so don't.
I'm I'm no spring chicken. Right? When I
Yeah.
see new EMTs coming in and they're like 21, 22, I'm like, holy shit. When's your
Hmm.
birthday? Holy shit, I remember that year. If your birthday is a year that I remember, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but that's not it.
Yeah.
But like, after everything, you have to think about the future, even though you might love whatever you do. I'm thinking about the money I will get at pension, and the only way my pension would grow is if I grow further, right? And that's at the end of the day, that's a goal for me. That and obviously less of the physical labor. The mental can be there, the mind can stay strong for a long time. Physically, you start to deteriorate here and there, little injuries, little things that have bothered you in the past come up, back pain, knee pains, whatever, you know.
Do you feel like there are people that you work with that, and obviously you don't have to say any names, but that you're kind of like, man, you're way past due. Like you need to be out already, and like they're still hanging in there, and you're objectively looking at them like you should really
So
reconsider this.
so there's people that actually we talk about, and
Mm-hmm.
those are the people like with 20 plus years on the streets, and it's like, guy, come on, like stop it. We have a term we call salty, right? That's when you're like seasoned and kind of like, eh, you know, fuck this, fuck that, they're fucking annoying, whatever, whatever, whatever. And we have those people, obviously. And for the life of me, I don't know why they still keep on going with, I mean, they love the career that much, but some people
Mm-hmm.
are also afraid of change,
Right.
right? And they don't want to move on to like a more supervisory role, more hands-off type thing. Even as a supervisor, in a sense, you can still do paramedic stuff if you ask the crew, like, hey, you guys cool if I start an IV? Most people, they know you, they'll be like, you know what, boss? Go ahead. You're still a paramedic. You're still officially a paramedic, so you still can do all the duty that you used to do. You're just a supervisory role now. Um, and I don't know why some people are just like that. They're a little stubborn in their mindset of, you know what, no, I'm going to do this forever.
Yeah, that
Uh,
makes sense. I mean,
some,
I feel like you probably find people like that in every line of work. So
100%,
that makes
100%.
sense.
I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense overall. I guess maybe because I'm thinking more analytically with it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but for them, it makes sense. They're comfortable in their role and they're there. Are they going to retire at that position? I've known people that have retired 25, over 25 years in one position as an EMT. Um, it's just, I don't know how that's possible anymore because, I mean, the cost of living obviously has gone way up, and I don't know how you just stay in EMT forever nowadays, at least.
Like financially, it's like straight up not possible.
Financially, it's on no way, no way. Unless you're doing overtime every day, every other day, like I don't know how it's possible. Or you're living within like very small means. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you got lucky and you're living without rent. You know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you
Yeah.
have someone that's paying the rent or paying the bills, but that's the biggest issue. I mean, living right now is very expensive. I
Yeah.
know
Yes.
I make over, I'm not going to say the exact amount, but I make over what's it called, six figures right now, and to me it doesn't even seem like I'm making six figures because I'm kind of like, all right, well, six figures. I don't own my own house.
Mm-hmm.
I have a vehicle that's I just leased, and I kind of like almost forced myself to lease it. Everything else I drive is a piece of shit. I like working on cars. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but while buying this car, I'm like, oh my God, it's going to be, another almost $500 a month. Oh, and then insurance. Oh my God, how much is this? Oh my God. Oh, that only leaves me with this much. Okay, well, I could pay off my credit cards. I guess you could do it, but I don't feel rich overall.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially as as you're getting older, like I feel like you're naturally gonna want to kind of physically slow down and do other things, and yeah, that's nuts. All right. Well, this has been phenomenal, Tim.
Woo!
Thank you so much
Oh man, that looks
for.
like I'm doing the shake weight.
Don't do that because somebody will Photoshop something.
Yes.
Yeah. This is gonna be my thumbnail for this video. No.
This.
But in all seriousness, Tim, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy life to talk to me, to
Anytime.
share these wild experiences with me. People need to know this, and especially the elements of like how you guys just help people give birth and deliver children, and I like I said, speaking from my personal experience, when I think about the industry of birth, the last people you think of are like EMS and paramedics. Like that's just not really the people that come to my mind. So it's just been very eye opening, and the kind of experiences you deal with, and thank you. Thank you
I think. No,
for
thank
doing it.
you. Thank you.
and
Anytime.
and naturally you have the sense of humor that
Oh,
it's beautiful, and that's I mean I feel like it makes sense. Like people who work in like things that are challenging, you have to be able to like know how to
yeah.
have fun.
We're all twisted as fuck.
Yeah.
We always most of us say it. Me and my partner say it to each other all the time. We're like, you know, you're sick in the head. I'm sick in the head. We're all sick in the head because it takes a certain type of person to see the shit we see and kind of be like, all right, so what are we having for lunch? Because that happens all
Yeah.
the time.
All right, Tim.
Right.
Thank you so much. I'll be
Yeah.
in touch with
Anytime.
you.
Yeah, of
All
course.
right. Have a nice
Mwah.
day, my friend.